Hi, friends. I'm Lisa from Trails Edge Astrology, and I am here to talk today about the astrology of September. Um, just to recap a little bit, hopefully most of you this summer have been working on really looking into your heart center and what makes you feel most whole, and what your changes and values are, how you want to revise your relationships, maybe how you want to think about how you spend your time, treasures, and talents. So those have all been things that have been churning for a lot of us over the summer. And speaking from personal experience, it has not been the easiest. So as often, this was a Venus retrograde, as often that energy is. That's going to resolve in September. And I think could bring some really interesting new opportunities for us to work with how we want to show up in the world. So the theme this month, I think, is really going to be about revising your thinking now. So we've been revising, as I mentioned, our heart's desires. We've been revising relationships, our values, how we spend our time, treasures, and talents. And coming into September, we're going to have the invitation to now rethink about the story we're telling, the narrative, how we intellectually or mentally show up in situations, and how does that reshaping our thinking, reshaping how we have conversations, what we're reading, what we're doing, in terms of those kinds of connections and those mental activities. How do we shape that so that we can live into whatever has changed in our heart over these last couple months? So so that's really what I'm inviting you to think about this right now is, what do I need to change about the story I'm telling myself or the story I'm telling other people, in order to be more authentically myself? All right, now let's get into week by week through the month of September with this overarching goal in mind. So the week of the 28th through September 3rd, which is where we are right now, we started the week with a Uranus station. So yesterday, Uranus station. I'm recording this on Tuesday, August 29th, by the way. So yesterday we had a Uranus station. Uranus is an outer planet, and when outer planets station, it's different than when inner planets, Mercury, Venus, or Mars station. So those are our personal planets. Uranus is an outer planet, so it's a little bit more of a societal feel, but we definitely potentially felt some shakeups in our foundations during late last week into this week. There might be some movement in things that we thought were previously stable. And it depends on where it hits in your chart and what other aspects are going on, how strongly you feel this. I know from my life and talking to some friends and colleagues that this has been, that there has been some shakeups, there has been some changes in spaces we thought were previously stable. Tomorrow we have a really, really beautiful full moon in Pisces. And this full moon is coming after this Uranus station. And there was a lot of activity last week. I don't know how last week felt for you, but it was potentially kind of intense. There was a lot of Saturnian energy, which tends to slow us down and tends to kind of, I always think of it as like the Professor McGonagall energy. It's a teacher and it's good, it has our best interest at heart, but isn't always the kindest and gentlest, makes us live up to our potential. So there was a lot of that energy last week, and then in the start of this week, and that has passed. And I feel like this full moon could really be a salve and could really have some healing. And that's why I have listed the theme for this week as serious healing. Because I think we have the potential to really feel into that. Pisces moons are very, very feeling. Full moons are illuminating. And so I recommend, if you are able, just go out and spend some time with the moon over the next couple days. And you don't have to do anything in particular, although, because it's over here. I have this really sweet book on moon rituals. That's kind of fun. That talks about, nice things to do on Pisces full moons, like paying attention to your deep feelings, and then finding or thinking about ways that you can ways to have an outlet for those deep feelings that are productive. Maybe a walk, maybe a bath, maybe a good conversation with a friend, those kinds of things. They also talk about not stifling your feelings. So this is a really good time to, if you're having deep feelings, if you need a good cry, watch a sad movie, that kind of thing. Talks about writing poetry. Pisces energy is very poetical, or singing, or any of those kinds of things are just really, really nice Piscean energy. It also mentions seclusion, which again is going inward. We have a lot of retrograde planets, so going inward could potentially be really cathartic during this time. And then at the end of the week, Sunday, I believe, the 3rd, Venus goes direct, or stations to go direct. So Venus is essentially stopped in the sky right now. So drilling down on whatever that 12th degree of Leo is in your chart. And just really asking us to really focus on what is valuable to us, not worrying about what's valuable to other people or what other people need us to do, but really, how do we want to spend our time, treasures, and talents? So that we've been working on it all summer. It's really like, this is the kind of the culmination, the drill down point. What does your self-care look like? So that's this week, serious healing. Next week, the 4th through the 10th, I think we have the potential to have some flashes of insight, building on this theme where we're rethinking how we live into our heart's desires. We have what's called a Mercury cazimi on the 6th, and the Mercury cazimi happens twice per cycle. When Mercury is retrograde, as it is now, Mercury is the closest to us that it gets, and while Mercury is still retrograde, so we are still rethinking at that cazimi point on the 6th. Mercury will be aligned with the sun, and there's the potential for some flash of insight, some like, that's why we're doing this, or this is where we're going. It's the beginning of a new Mercury cycle. Mercury cycle is about 84 days. And so it's the beginning of the next round of this cycle. So what are you going to be working on in terms of your thought processes, how you're communicating, what information you're taking in, what information you're putting out, all of those mercurial things. So look on the 6th for that flash of insight. I skipped over this on the 4th. Jupiter stations to go retrograde. So we again have a lot of retrograde planets in the sky. And when we have retrograde planets, it's not a time to push outward. It's a time to really go inward and to really be more receptive than active. So in with this flash of insight on the 6th, we have the potential to have some time and ability to reevaluate our beliefs, which I think is an interesting, nice, beautiful mix in, we reevaluated our hearts. We're in the process of reevaluating our thinking, and how do our beliefs play into our thinking and our heart's desires and all of that. So all that kind of comes the week of the 4th, but there's the potential for you to go, that's what we're doing. Okay, I might not be ready to move forward yet. It's things are still moving slowly in the sky, but this is making sense. I get where I'm going. So again, depending on how it shows up in your chart, your chart will indicate how it's going to show up and what it's connecting to. Some people will feel it stronger than others. And I don't think I mentioned this Mercury retrograde is in Virgo. So Mercury is in the best possible place in the sky. So this is probably not going to be as much what's going to break Mercury retrograde, but really, what do we break down to fix the process so that, again, we can live into our heart's desires. Next week, the 11th through the 17th, I think we're going to start to maybe put it all together, put all of this reworking, and we're not going to move fast, but we're going to start to get off the gate. We have a new moon in Virgo that is in aspect to Uranus. And when anything's in aspect to Uranus, we will have some unexpected surprises. This is a trine to Uranus, and trines are harmonious aspects. So new moons bring new things and new beginnings, and we have a chance to think about what we want to manifest going forward. Virgoan energy is about the analysis. I always like to think of it as the alchemist. So Virgos can really transform the earth, turn lead into gold, if you will. They can see all of the steps that are needed to do the things that need to be done. And so a new moon in Virgo is really that chance to, like, how do we put this all together? And there's some Uranian energy, and there's some like flash of insight or a leap that you weren't able to take before. So I'm curious about, how this new moon shows up on the 14th. Then on the 15th, Mercury stations to go direct. Right? Then Mercury retrograde goes fast. It's only retrograde for 21 days. So Mercury stations to go direct, and are there some ideas that are flowing? We also in this time have the exact Sun trine Uranus. So I mentioned that the new moon was trine Uranus. It is exact on the 15th. So that's just that whole, like, what is the creative self-expression that's coming forward that is letting you figure out how to move yourself into that heart-centered space that you've been working on? And then finally this week, we end with an exact Venus-Jupiter square. And so Venus and Jupiter have been aspect for a long time. They're both moving really slowly in the sky right now. So we've been feeling this for a long time, and it's a super supportive energy. So we have a lot of benevolence and a lot of love and support as we are trying to enact any changes we're interested in making, and exploring any other mental kind of opportunities that we are interested in exploring. And again, we're not, the movement out of a Mercury retrograde, out of a Venus retrograde is slow. So it's not like a quick turning point. So don't expect necessarily to leave the gate running. But start to think about what the steps are and how you might want to take them to move forward. And then, then the final week of the month, the 18th through the 24th, or the final full week of the month, the 18th to the 24th, I have dubbed Seeing is Believing. There are a lot of aspects between the sun and other planets and other things this week. And when we have aspects with the sun, we get illumination. We see the sun as our will and our vitality, and it shines light on things. And so we start this week with a sun opposite Neptune. And when we have oppositions, those planets, those archetypes are as far apart as they can get. So it's sort of like we have the sun at one end of the hall, shining light, being our ego, being our vitality, being our will, looking down the hall at Neptune, which is this agape love and often fog and emotion, and Neptune's in Pisces right now. So it's just, whereas the sun is sharp and objective, the Neptune in Pisces is like the deep depths of the ocean, just that receptive, quiet energy. And so when you have an opposition like this, and they're looking down the hall at each other, there's not a way to necessarily combine the energies as there are with other aspects, but instead you sort of have to find the balance point or the sway, living in that duality. There are parts of you that are that sun, that objective, that moving forward, that shining the light, and there are parts of you that are that deep recess and deep feeling and beauty and agape love. And how do you balance those two? How do you live in that duality? We live in duality all of the time, but we'll have a chance on the 19th to kind of feel into that duality. And then we go right into a place where the sun trines Pluto. And a sun trine Pluto is that vitality, interacting in an easy flowing manner with Pluto, which is our deep subconscious, and often called our shadow. Rick Levine, I quote Rick Levine on this all the time, calls Pluto the cosmic roto-rooter. Pluto is like the part of our archetypes that pushes us to be so strongly authentically who we are. And so this Sun trine Pluto, these two are going to work together to help kind of bring some of the muck to the surface and shine some light on things that maybe we haven't been able to shine light on in the past. Pluto is at the anaretic degrees of Capricorn. It will soon go back into well, actually not that soon. It will be going back into Aquarius. It's doing this dance between the two. So this is a really strong place to kind of help us finish up any work we have needed to do with those Capricorn kinds of energies that we've been working with. 23rd, the Sun goes into Libra, and this is the fall equinox. So this is a point where the Sun is at a point where there's equal day and equal night. And I called it the fall equinox. In the Northern Hemisphere, it's the fall equinox. In the Southern Hemisphere, it's the spring equinox. But it's that midpoint of the year. And it's a time that historically we have celebrated. It's a turning of the seasons, and if you are inclined towards rituals or recognizing energies, the 23rd might be a day to kind of step in and recognize the powerful transition of the year. We're entering the final quarter of this year. And, what does that look like? That's usually a releasing time. It's, we've been through the growing season. And now, we're reaping the benefits of our harvest, and we need to start putting things to bed. And then finally, we end this week with a Mars opposite Chiron. And again, they're two planets looking down the hall at each other. They're as far apart as they can possibly be. Mars is our desire to act, and Chiron is a more subtle body, but it talks about where we are deeply wounded, or where we believe we are deeply wounded. And as you go through life, many of us find that those things where we think we're wounded are really our superpowers, to quote Glennon Doyle from Untamed. So there might be some things that are a little wounding this week, or we might take actions. Mars is in Libra, so maybe through relationships, or through things we say, or through even some passive aggressive behavior potentially that just sting a little bit. And again, we're looking for, how do we balance that duality? Both of these things are true, and where do we find that middle ground? And then we end the month on the 29th with a full moon in Aries, and a Venus-Uranus square. And the Venus-Uranus square has come up several times throughout this cycle. It is a place where we can get some quick movement around leaning into our heart's desires, as we've been doing all summer. A full moon in Aries is innovative and expressive, and just super, super creative, and kind of illuminating those parts of your life. So that one should be a nice one. And then we head into October, which is eclipse season, but I'll talk about that later. So September, I think, is a nice month. I think there's a lot to enjoy. If you are interested in talking more about astrology, please look me up. I try and keep this channel updated. I do another program with Denise Hewlett from Stars Align Astrology called The Cosmic Curriculum. And that is more geared towards, it's more of a conversation about the aspects, and it's how they are showing up in our lives, and how we are co-creating with the universe. So that's the Cosmic Curriculum. But you can find all that at lisamerrifield.com. Thanks so much for sticking with me. Enjoy September. I would love to hear how this is all shaping up for you. Thanks so much. Talk soon. Bye.